Thank you very much, Stu. Absolutely no forgiveness whatsoever for that first slide. That was awful. So, absolute red card. I'm Matt. I was CTO at ZoneFox, which is a company which spent several years here in Codebase, and we graduated from here couple of years ago and moved to our own offices outside. And at the end of last year, we were acquired by Fortinet, the cybersecurity company, the fourth largest cybersecurity company in the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about some lessons that we learned along the way. Now, I'm a CTO technology, but I'm going to talk a little bit about product, because that's the crowd, and try and sort of give you my thoughts on what I learned as a CTO about product and scaling up. So a bit about my journey. So I have a degree in computer science from St Andrews University. I then went to work for Scottish Widows here in Edinburgh, and I was lucky because I was 1 week too late to make it onto the mainframe programming course. So I avoided becoming a mainframe programmer by that March. I then went to work for a consultancy doing web development. I worked in financial services, I worked in government, I worked in all sorts of organisations. The funniest one was working ITV in London, where they had big TVs on the wall showing ITV all the time, trying to work with Jeremy Kyle in the background. Really, really hard. I then went to work for an investment management company based here in Edinburgh, doing financial services stuff. And then a company called Barry & Hibbert, which did stochastic modelling for actuaries, trying to work out how much pensions should cost. And then I went to work for ZoneFox, which is the company some of you know me from. Now, my journey is fairly interesting because for 3 of those companies, I exited. So I had an exit done to me. I turned up one day and found out the company had been acquired. I participated in an exit, but I didn't realize it was an exit for one company. So I had to sit with due diligence lawyers for a lot of time, but I thought it was for investment, not for acquisition. And then I worked for ZoneFox where I co-led the acquisitions. So I was talking to some people earlier about how that happened. And it started with a really innocuous email from LinkedIn. Somebody contacted me through LinkedIn to say, can we have a chat? I think you're really interesting, your profile's really interesting, your company's really interesting, I'd love to hear more about it. And 6 months later, we did a really large deal where that company acquired ZoneFox. So it can happen in all sorts of interesting ways. I'm going to talk today a little bit about cybersecurity, a little bit about being in Edinburgh, and some of the advantages and disadvantages of running a startup and scale up from Edinburgh. I'm going to talk about the channel and selling through the channel, so how you can scale your business and get your product out there. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about bear traps. I googled better images of bear traps. They're not pretty images, so I picked this one instead. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a huge business. So Stu will be able to tell you it's estimated to be, I think, $300 billion business by 2024. It's absolutely massive. And companies in cybersecurity are frequently growing very, very quickly. As Stu talked about here, one of the most exciting things in your career is about recruitment and finding good people. It's really hard. There's a complete shortage of good cybersecurity people out there. I think you talked about really bad examples of companies who come in and promise the silver bullet of something fixes everything. It's rubbish. Okay? Cybersecurity companies are great, but pick the cybersecurity company for the problem that you have at that time. Go-to-market challenges. We live in Edinburgh. I live in Edinburgh. We work in Edinburgh. It's a great place. However, it's not America. And that's brought 2 challenges for us. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. The challenges are there is a huge amount of funding in America to help companies grow. The sort of thing that you will struggle to find anywhere in the UK and almost certainly struggle to find in Edinburgh. The other thing is we met prospects who said, you're not a US company, you're doing cybersecurity, you're not a real cybersecurity company because you're not in the US. But then conversely, we would meet one of our biggest customers is a company who will not buy security products from US companies because they're concerned about US organizations getting access to data. So it plays both ways, but it's something you need to be cognizant of, or we had to be cognizant of. We think Edinburgh is a great base, but there are challenges around about that. It's, you know, there are some fantastic people in Edinburgh, some fantastic innovation, but you've got to be aware of the shortcomings as well as the positives. This, and you're not supposed to be able to read this, this is a picture. There's an organization called Momentum Partners who talk about the cybersecurity landscape. And this is the selected few cybersecurity companies that they monitor. It's broken down by a different sector. So there's one in there around security analytics, which is my thing. And there's a bunch of companies in there. In there is Fortinet. That used to be a ZoneFox logo, but it's now Fortinet. ZoneFox is a company that is worth £15 billion is their market cap. They make £1.8 billion per year, and they've got £1 billion in the bank. And they're that small on that picture. And that's my point. Us as ZoneFox, we're trying to go up against all these companies. There is one of the other competitors in that square is a company called Darktrace, who some of you may have heard of. And they have raised something like $230 million of funding. They moved from Cambridge to co-locate to Cambridge and the US. And they have something like 700 people working for them. We were competing against them from upstairs on M floor with about 12 people at the time, with a lot less than 230 million of funding. And that was our space. So it's a real challenge. And we had to think about how to out-innovate them. We had to think about how to out-innovate people like Oracle and Microsoft, etc., from Edinburgh. Money. When trying to take a product to market, money is a huge challenge for a bunch of reasons. We spend a lot of our time as a company trying to get the funding to build the product, to take to market, to show people. And it's really hard. We had to get that money and make the sales to build new features. Because customers wanted new features. They wanted the most innovative, cutting-edge product out there that they could get. And we had to try and find that money in order to build that product. And that's really hard. One of the best ways we were told to do that was through the channel. That's a picture of the English Channel, by the way. And that gives you the hockey stick growth on the left-hand side. Now, someone once told me, and I think it's fairly sage advice, if you have money, you can sell direct. You can build your own direct sales force to sell your product. If you've got time, you can go through the channel. Now, the channel can sell anything they want. Okay, so they're your partners, they're your sales partners, they can sell any product they want. And going back to that picture, that's the problem. They can sell any product they want. So what they're going to do is they're going to pick the product that is well established, easy to sell, makes them lots of margin, and something that they can shift really easily. So as a startup, as a scale-up, trying to take a product to channel partners and saying, would you like to sell our product? They're like, no, that sounds kind of hard. We've got 6 other products that are easier to sell, so we're going to concentrate on them. And it's incredibly difficult to break into the channel and get channel to sell your product for you. They are really distracted and really busy elsewhere. And they say, right, well, we'll pop round to your office in London. And we're like, we're in Edinburgh. Okay, and they get so much worse at that point. So there are challenges out there. Now, if you can break the channel, now I'm speaking as someone who now works for Fortinet, who has global partners. Now, channel's great. You know, I get to go and speak to channel partners globally, and they want to sell our product, and that's fantastic. But as a startup, you need to be aware and some of the challenges that you will face. Because the other thing about channel is their needs are very different from your customers. So the sort of features and the sort of things they will want a dashboard that allows them to manage 100 customers simultaneously. Now, that's very different from a customer who wants a new feature to do something else. So that's a challenge that you have to balance. You had steps, I've got the Chuckle Brothers. You know, it is. When you start getting to channel, when you start getting to a bunch of different customers, one of the biggest challenges we found were the simultaneous pulls on the product. So a bunch of customers saying we want this, a bunch of other customers saying we want this, financial services customers saying we want this, high-tech customers saying we want this, channel partners saying we want a different feature. And suddenly, as a product manager, you're sat there, your head is spinning. You're looking around thinking, well, how am I going to balance all these competing demands? And going back to the slide about money, you've got this sort of, this albatross saying, well, I have to make cash out of this, otherwise the business isn't going anywhere. So you have to try and balance those simultaneous demands on the product and on your engineering team and other teams' time. Bear traps. So I want to talk about one particular bear trap, and it's one I came across numerous times. That's a magpie. Magpies are like shiny things. Magpies see shiny things and they go for shiny things. Dollar signs are really shiny. Every time someone puts a dollar sign in front of a magpie, the magpie jumps to the dollar sign. Put another way, a customer comes along and says, do you know what? If your product just did this, I might buy it. That's the worst line ever. Okay? Or a partner says, yeah, it's good, but one of your competitors is doing this. You should do this, and then we could look at it seriously. And that's the thing I used to hate the most, because that was, suddenly you're sort of sitting there going, well, shall I do this roadmap thing? I've got a great roadmap. It's kind of market tested. But now I've got someone offering me X thousand pounds to do this. And what happens is this, right? You suddenly start looking in multiple different directions and you're never quite sure where to go. The answer, and the thing I think I'd like you to take away from today, is trust your own judgment. If you built that roadmap, if you built that product vision, and you had good data to put into that, trust it. When someone comes along and offers you a few £1,000s to build a new feature, to take your product in a different direction that doesn't meet your product vision, walk away. And as a startup, that's a really difficult and brave thing to do. But it is what you should do. Thank you.